would also remind you, it's a coincidence, of course, but when I looked through the calendar today it is exactly 26 November 1939, when the Soviet Union shelled its own village near the border between the Soviet Union and Finland, and that was the pretext for the war 4 days later. So what is happening nowadays in the Azov Sea, very much reminiscent of the events of the 30s.
So besides the condemnation in the Council, what do you believe are the next steps that need to be taken here?
Tightening of the sanctions. This is the only way, because Russia doesn't understand any other language, unfortunately.
There's a request for 2 separate meetings, one of them coming from the Russians on violations of their borders. What do you make of that request?
This is a very clumsy, title. First of all, there's no such an agenda item on the Security Council. We'll understand why they are doing that. I hope that the procedural vote will show the real attitude of the Security Council members to this issue.
How worried about any kind of escalation of the situation?
Well, the situation is very worrisome. There are all indications also that they are preparing the land assault on the city of Mariupol and Berdyansk, the 2 Ukrainian ports. So the situation is really serious in the region.
So are you going to provide the evidence to the Security Council members?
Yes, of course. I have a lot of evidence, including the interception of the radio exchange between the monitor in the port of Kerch and one of the Russian ships when they were ramming the Ukrainian tugboat, and there are clear records of the orders shoot to kill.
Do you have any news on your sailors? Any updates on your sailors?
No, we don't have any information on them. We only know that out of 6, 2 are seriously wounded, and at least 1 is in critical situation.
Why now? What do you make of Russia's move?
Well, it's difficult to say. They don't have any logic behind their moves.
Ambassador, some are saying it's a provocation from the Ukrainian side, and President Poroshenko has just announced the martial law starting November 28th. Some say it's because he thinks he's going to lose the elections, and so you can't have an election during martial law. What do you say to that?
No, it has nothing to do with elections, because the martial law, as far as I know, is planned for 2 months. It can be suspended any time, but we cannot ignore the really dangerous situation in the Azov Sea. There should be some kind of reaction. The country should be ready, and the military should be ready. Thank you.
The 8,409th meeting of the Security Council is called to order. The provisional agenda for this meeting is maintenance of international peace and security, violation of the borders of the Russian Federation. Does any member of the Council wish to speak on this subject? I give the floor to the representative of the United States.
Thank you. I make this statement on behalf of the United States, the Kingdom of the Netherlands, Poland, Sweden, and the United Kingdom. We stand united in opposing Russia's attempt to discuss yesterday's serious escalation and in the Kerch Strait under an agenda item entitled Violation of the Borders of the Russian Federation. We strongly support Ukraine's sovereignty and territorial integrity within its internationally recognized borders, extending to its territorial waters. We express our deep concern over the incident, which represent a dangerous escalation and violation of international law. We look forward to discussing Russia's provocation under the appropriate agenda item. Accordingly, we urge all council members to vote against the adoption of the agenda as proposed by Russia. Thank you.
I thank the representative of the United States for her statement. I now give the floor to the representative of the Russian Federation.
Thank you, Mr. President. In convening today's emergency meeting of the UN Security Council, Russia relied on the temporary rules of procedure of the Security Council, which states that the President of the Security Council is bound to convene a meeting on the requirement of any member of the Council at any time and to consider any issue. There is a need to understand that the Ukrainian delegation's desire to initiate another meeting under another agenda item is nothing than putting off responsibility for an issue that comes under international peace and security. The Ukrainian proposal on the agenda we do not deem to be appropriate. I'd like to ask, has anybody actually read the letter from the Ukrainian PR, which has been talked about? This situation dates back 4 years and has nothing to do with what happened in the region yesterday. It says that on the 25th of November, the Ukrainian regime created a direct threat to international peace and security, and Ukraine had an aggressive act of provocation against the borders of the Russian Federation. Not only were key provisions of international law violated, but a general law, namely the UN Charter, that requires all states to uphold the sovereignty of all other states. The fact that such a violation occurred and using fairly dangerous measures in a narrow strait can create the risk for the normal movement of vessels in that particular area of water. Therefore, this banditry must be curbed, and the international community is bound to understand what Ukraine is doing, or Kiev is doing. We would urge our partners in the Security Council not to shoulder responsibility for the dangerous conduct of the Ukrainian authorities. If this tribunal continues to be used to turn a blind eye to the military aggression of Ukraine against Russia, and Russia wants to protect its borders, then the prestige and authority of the Council will be undermined. Thank you.
I thank the representative of the Russian Federation for his statement. In view of the request and the comments made by members of the Security Council, I intend to put the provisional agenda to the vote. Accordingly, I shall put it to the vote now. Will those in favor of the adoption of the provisional agenda please raise their hand? Those against? Abstentions? The result of the voting is as follows. 4 votes in favor, 7 votes against, 4 abstentions. The provisional agenda has not been adopted, it having failed to obtain the required number of votes. I now give the floor to those council members who wish to make statements now. I give the floor to the representative of the Russian Federation.
Thank you, Mr. President. We regret the vote that has just taken place. However, we'd like to underscore that nobody can hamper Russia as a permanent member of the Security Council from raising issues here that we deem to be important and under agenda items to which they pertain. Your vote will not have an impact on this, during which those states who are claiming to be independent regarding their foreign policy have gone back to their old instinct and just are supporting the scenarios which run counter to the principles of the Security Council and its rules of procedure. Now, you are more concerned about not solving problems, but rather as to what which agenda item should prevail for this meeting. Frankly, we are thinking about some ready issues here. You're discrediting now the Security Council, just as the Ukrainians, with their actions, have discredited the GA. Yesterday, after Russia asked this meeting of the Security Council to be convened, our Western partners sought to present the situation as such, though that Ukraine and not Russia asked for it to be convened. Please go slowly here. Since you have put procedural issues over the interests of other people, I am not going to take the floor under the agenda item that is organized based on the letter from the permanent representative of Ukraine. I will just stick to my remarks here. On the 25th of November, 3 naval vessels of Ukraine illegally crossed Russia's border and moved towards the Kerch Strait. They did not respond to the customs vessels and Black Sea vessels urges from Russia, which were asking for the vessels to move normally through the Kerch Strait. As I said, this was in violation of the UN Charter and the norms of international law, including Article 19 on the International Law of the Sea of 1962, that determines the rights of neighboring states to provide movement in their areas, and also peaceful movement for the Russian Federation in the Black Sea region. We consider such steps as a violation of Russia's sovereignty. These illegal acts meant that the Russian customs vessels had to use force. Thanks to their restraint and their high professionalism, there was no victims caused. The 3 people who were injured were provided with necessary medical help, and there's no threat to their lives, and these are members of the Ukrainian crew. Responsibility for this incident is borne by those people who gave the crew the illegal command. The vessels are in Russian ports, and criminal investigations have been started. Mr. President, recently Kiev has refrained from a gross violation of the Russian border. The Sea of Azov, which is an internal sea for Russia and Ukraine, has bilateral agreements in force, and Kiev was freely using these agreements. After the building of the Kerch Bridge just 2 months ago, the Ukrainian naval vessels, and in an unhindered way, went to Berdyansk. So in other words, so there was no problem with the use of the Kerch Strait, and they were well aware of the rules, and they had stuck to the rules. And it was just a check that took 3 hours by Russian customs vessels to check for any issues. Inter alia, this was necessary given the threats posed by Ukrainian radicals who said that they wanted to blow up the Crimean bridge. Now, what changed yesterday? Why 3 Ukrainian naval vessels had to be detained by Russian vessels in that area? This provocation was pre-planned, that's obvious, and it was with the full connivance of Western states that de facto have just given carte blanche to any actions taken by their subordinates. In August, there was Mr. Yelchenko in the Security Council, and he talked about preparing some unpleasant surprises for Russia. At the beginning of November, his delegation in the GA had a resolution on the Sea of Azov and related to Russia. And support for this anti-Russian document was something that they found earlier. So what worked best there? Well, it was that this is now in the Security Council, this issue. Furthermore, over recent months, Kiev, with the support of Washington, hammered up the issue of the so-called Sea of Azov. And this is just because no plans to set up a new military base in Russia exists. So the idea there is just to provide protection and security for the Crimean bridge. All of these manipulations in international organizations are things that the Ukrainian authorities need in order to solve the problem. On the 21st of November, those people who have been looking into the tragedy outlined the date. The fifth year protest since in the Maidan Square. It's clear that everybody has lost faith in those who pushed forward that dignified resolution. Over the past 5 years, all of our neighbours seem to be pleased. Industry, everything collapsed, however. The West, and first and foremost the US, despite the interests of everybody, have used every means possible to put in millions of dollars into the structures in Ukraine and have just pushed forward Ukraine's geopolitical process. Its main aim is to create division in Ukraine and to pit against each other two brotherly nations, Russia and Ukraine. Although it's already clear that these plans have not been fully carried out, and anybody who's involved in it is lost authority in the eyes of the Ukrainian people. The best confirmation of this is the very low ratings of President Poroshenko. It's just shameful for him. But they're just very soon. They're coming up in 4 months. So how can he maintain power in these circumstances? It's clear. Organized provocation and once again accuse Russia of everything. Inflate his own ratings and put himself forward as a savior of the nation, saving himself from the mythical Russian act of aggression, and impose martial law. This is precisely what the Kiev authorities are trying to do. So what is the idea of imposing martial law? And of course, it's going to be extended. We all understand what this is about. This is about cancelling the elections, despite all of Poroshenko's assurances to the contrary. Over these past 5 years, through brainwashing and total anti-Russian propaganda, hatred and enmity towards Russia has been fostered. There have been non-democratic methods used, and they have been brainwashing the opinion of the passive majority. However, ladies and gentlemen, my own people do not hate the Ukrainians. We still love them. We believe in their wisdom, and we are very welcoming to them. And we listen to what they say about their suffering, their poverty, and the lack of the rule of law there, suffering in their rich country. And so we do understand that people are leaving because they understand that that ship is sinking. Yes, says your 5-year anti-Russian political project that should just have been called an anti-Russian project is clear to all those that you are well aware of the so-called Maidan reforms that are not moving forward. In fact, they're just pushing Ukraine closer to the brink. In these circumstances, all people are aware that the situation is facing bankruptcy, and what we're talking about here is war. This is why. It's not because of the mythical Russian act of aggression, but really what is the idea is just to stoke the flames of the war in Donbass. We see Ukrainian nationalism and Russophobia, and what is happening here is that this plan was worked out a long time ago. There was a proper plan worked out, including the Security Council, the Minsk agreements, in other words. It's no secret that the desire in other words, Washington could just resolve this conflict in the east of Ukraine in a 10-minute period. So we are moving towards the March election, and what the Maidan team that is facing bankruptcy needed was a serious worsening of the situation, and ideally it needed war. So once again, it needs to focus on anti-Russian rhetoric to ensure people that none of the problems are their problems or caused by the leaders or the Western backers, but rather by Russia. As opposed to you, we in Russia are not scared of calling a spade a spade. We're trying to look at how the neighboring states acted, and during the Second World War, they actually killed thousands of Poles, Jews, and Russians. Your Ukrainian subordinates are discrediting these universal values on a daily basis, the ones that you so clearly proclaim. We believe in them, we promote them, and we develop them. As regards the state borders of Russia, well, you don't need to worry about that. Our country has never caused the first blow, but it knows how to protect itself. The population of Crimea and other regions of Russia are properly protected. We know that the delegation that initiated the vote, looking forward to the next meeting in order to state their opinion, we know that they will repeat the well-known mantra about aggression, annexation, and occupation. But we know what they're not talking about, the fact that the regime in Kiev does not want peace. It's not striving to build and promote a dignified life. They don't want dialogue with their own people in the East. They don't actually want European values that they constantly bang on about. The only thing that Kiev politicians want is to maintain their own power and justify their own failings by the acts of the Russian aggressor. And the sponsors of this regime just want domination by undermining the good neighborly relations between brotherly countries and peoples in Europe, Asia, Africa, and by the old Roman principle of divide and conquer. Rather than repeating the past, we need to learn from our mistakes and build a new world built on multilateralism, mutual respect, and indivisible security. And we urge everybody to do that and respect that. Thank you.
I thank the representative of the Russian Federation for his statement. There are no more names inscribed on the list of speakers. The meeting is adjourned.